We're now thrilled to be joined by longtime coach, now maybe media personality. I don't know, Dallas. You have to fill us in if this is going to extend beyond your work in the playoffs. Dallas Eakins joins us. First of all, thanks. Good to see you, Dallas. How are you?
Hey, great to see you guys too, and doing well.
Yeah. Okay. The first question I have for you. This is I need to know, in order to get anything out of your pantry, do we still have to do sit-ups and push-ups? I think one of your daughters had put a sign up on your pantry that said three push-ups in, three push-ups out, because that sounds like
Could be helpful
a
for
lot
me
of work to
personally.
get a snack. I could use this.
Yeah, that you know what that was during. I think that was during COVID,
Oh, is that
and
old? I didn't. I just saw that pop up. Yeah.
yeah, but it was up there for a while, and it was actually it's amazing that our daughter caught on to that because she just was like, "Hey, the only reason anybody goes in here is they grab bad food, like
That's
snack
right.
on something, right?" And so it was fun. We had that going for a while in the household. We actually moved homes last year, and the sign didn't make it to the new home. So
Oh,
I'm able to sneak in there guilt free that I'm not ignoring the sign.
that's great. That's great. We'll transfer that over here. We need that here. It's a real issue in our household. Um, So, Dallas, I just want to, if we can start with Anaheim, because it's. I remember, when the news came out, and you were like super gracious, as you always are, and kind of thanking everybody for the opportunity. But it was also like a reminder of really what you had to deal with. It was like, unbelievable opportunity in San Diego, then COVID, and then a rebuilding process. Like, that's a really, as a coach, a difficult stretch of time. But I know how your mindset is. You're like, you can learn something through anything. So I'd be curious what that kind of, what you took away from that experience.
Well, I really think it's important. I don't care what you do, is to go back, have some really good self evaluation, understand history, and then get to
Mm-hmm.
your circumstance really quickly.
Mhm.
And it's those choices and circumstance that reveal your character, and it allows you to keep moving forward. The history in Anaheim is what it was. I had an
Yeah.
unbelievable opportunity to go into San Diego, brand new franchise,
Mm-hmm.
get hockey going down there, and it was just an incredible experience for 4 years. We won a lot of hockey games. We developed kids like Montour and Shea
Mm-hmm.
Theodore, and the list can go on and on. And then the opportunity in Anaheim comes, amazing opportunity, and but it was a little gray what we were doing.
Right.
Are we going into a rebuild? Are we going to try to retool it? We were trying to insert young players, still try to win, but you know
Yeah.
it, it was a little bit gray. But my time there, when I look back, it is what it is. My first season gets shut down by COVID. Second season is full COVID, right?
Mm-hmm.
We get into the third year. My boss, who I had a lot of respect for, who did his business a little bit old school, he gets let go, and then a new manager comes in and declares rebuild and
Yeah.
trades away all of our guys. And we had that team that year. We were near the top of our division at Christmas time, and then everything started swirling. And then, it's very rare that a manager comes in and ends up keeping the coach. I
Right.
was, really grateful to have a year with them, but I got the sense of what was coming. And the I think it's just important to be yourself on the way out the door. And
Right.
I guess I could be bitter and disappointed and all these things. The only thing I'm disappointed about is I know my relationships with the players,
Mm-hmm.
and I know some of them will just slowly go away. Now there's a handful in there that never will. It's kind of like my relationships that I still have with like Kadri and Luke Shan and guys that I've coached in the past. So that saddens me because every player in that dressing room is like my son.
Hmm.
I've never really thought of that, honestly. It's like, I mean, because that's not relationships that we have because we're not we're not hockey coaches, but like you get that sense, but it's like, is it like seeing, an old friend that you've fallen out of touch with? And there's always that level of like, wistfulness or kind of, you know, bittersweet moments when you come across, you know, these guys who you were around so closely and so, and you know, intensely for years. Then maybe time passes, and the idea of you running into people at events or whatever and just being like, oh, okay, it's not like it was before. That's something I don't think I'd given too much thought to.
Yeah, you know what? It is like seeing an old friend for me.
Yeah.
I run into guys all the time that I've either I've coached or maybe even sometimes played with. And but the kids that you coached, it's always a pretty special relationship. And I think you get really misunderstood, especially as a coach, quickly when
Mhm.
you've coached a rebuilding team. Like people just look at it and go, "Oh man, that must have been a disaster. That room must have been really bad. Like everything's bad." And it's not. We fully understood where we were as a team. We were trying to get better every day. I do think we got better in a number of spots. I think the team is going to be really well served with some of our players' development, and I'm going to keep cheering for them. It's like in an hour from now, I'm going to go run and I'm going to have my Anaheim Ducks shirt on because I'm a fan.
Mm-hmm.
And
Hmm.
so it's I think the whole people get I think this. I think people choose to really get mad and upset and all these things. And I guess there are sometimes it's warranted, but for me here, it's very different. I have so much love for the ownership here. There'll be people that I'm in touch with for the rest of my life, and it's nothing but
Mm-hmm.
I'm going out the door with a great experience and a lot of love.
I was
So
watching the Sportsnet
okay.
broadcast of the lottery, and you said ahead of time. Not, of course, wasn't surprised to hear this, but you're rooting for the Ducks to win the first overall pick, right? Like that's not something obviously is
Absolutely.
that then, and that isn't what happened. But they're still in a pretty good spot. They have the second overall pick, whether it ends up being, you know, Fantilli or whoever the choice does end up being there. I'm just wondering, you know, you mentioned the Simules and, you know, ownership there and whatever else. uh, what kind of organization is, you know, Adam Fantilli or one of those top prospects coming into it at this point? Why is that a place that, you know, someone should be excited to land?
Well, they're going to get opportunity, number one,
Yeah.
just the way the roster set up. So that's really important. Our ownership here, Henry and Susan Samueli, their daughter Jillian does an amazing job, just an amazing job with San Diego. If there's anybody that's deserving of being in a management position in the NHL, it's her. That lady has certainly paid her dues over the years. But like they are just giving people to our community here, and they are hands off. They're more fans than anything. Now Jillian's a little different. She's running the show in San Diego and doing a great job of that. But they're coming into a really well grounded organization. And whoever that person is that's coming in out of this draft, they're also coming into a community where you can go play, you can come in and work, and there's not a lot of noise. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
was just in Toronto for a couple of weeks, and I had forgotten about those Canadian markets
Mm-hmm.
and what a buzzsaw it is, and how you have to be so disciplined on how you think. So, whoever this young man is that's coming in, he's coming into a really well-grounded organization, a place that he can quietly develop. And you know what? That high pick, it was necessary. It was so necessary for the Ducks. Like the organization needed a top 3 pick this year. It was just
Mm-hmm.
absolutely necessary. I know the record looks bad, but it's basically mission accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you mentioned the Canadian market. We're both Americans. We've been watching Trevor Zegras play a long time, Sean and I, and I would be curious. Like, I imagine if he was in Toronto or something, the narrative around him might be completely different, or at least louder. What are your thoughts on Trevor? The way he's kind of burst into the league, and what he needs to do to get better moving forward.
Well, I think he's a really misunderstood young man.
Yeah.
He's got a wonderful sense of humor. He's really light all the time. Really verbal kid in
Mm-hmm.
every sense of the way. You know, if you and I use 3,000 words a day, he's probably at 6 or 7,000 words. It's, you know, he's a really, really uh, verbal kid, just nonstop talk. He's obviously very, very skilled. You know, everybody sees that. He's has the ability to pull off some, you know, just jaw dropping things on the ice. And he's not a hot dog though. Like he's not out there trying to. It just comes to him naturally. He just feels it and he does it. And I think that's really important for everybody to understand. You know, his growth is he just needs more reps.
Yeah.
It's in every sense of you know, the word. He needs more reps in the weight room. He just needs time to pass that his body and his brain can mature. He's going to continue to learn the lessons of it's these little things in the game, the things that you're seeing in the playoffs right now that win you games and
Mm-hmm.
lose you games. And he's just not there yet. And that's okay. Like, that's okay. That's part of a young player's development. They're not the same player, but I know exactly what Troy Terry went through on
Mm-hmm.
his, and you know, a lot of the ups and downs that Trevor goes through are the same things that Troy Terry's gone through, and Troy Terry's on the other side just because he's matured. So I think the biggest thing for Z is that everybody needs to take a breath and let the young man go about his business. You're going to have to readjust his steering wheel every once in a while, and there needs to you need to have the challenge with him that he is going to get stronger, really take an interest in the smaller things that win you games. But I have no doubt in my mind that this kid's going to be really special in the future.
You mentioned the gray area that you had to exist in with the Ducks at the start, right? Right, where it was, are we trying to win games now? Are we going to do whatever? There was that sort of middle, you know, mushy middle that you guys were in at times. And I think a big part of that was because of John Gibson, because you guys had a proven goaltender, you know, who's accomplished quite a bit as a starter in the NHL in net there. I want to know what the last year or two was like working with him and you know, maybe trying to maintain, you know, his mindset in a situation that was, you know, not necessarily where a guy in the prime of his career would want to be.
Well, I'll tell you what, it wasn't always rainbows and butterflies. I'll tell you that, and I love that. I love John Gibson like my son, and I wish I could take out some of that DNA out of him and put it into other people, because this kid is so driven to win. That's all he wants to do. He doesn't want his time wasted. He's there to win, and that's it. And you know, and this is where a sense of history is really necessary in organizations and for people to look at. It's just not this last year that's wore on him. Like it's been 6 years, right? I was a coach there for 4. Things had been going south with the Ducks 2 years before I got there. And so this is really worn on him. And he all he wants to do is the 3 letters, WIN. That's it. And so I think it's been a real struggle for him. I have nothing but the most amount of respect. I love this kid, and in every sense of the word, love. And you know, him and I have had a lot of conversations over the years. What comes for him next will be, I think, really, really interesting to watch. I know there's the narrative out there. Oh, his numbers. Oh, his game. He's declining. To me, that's a bunch of BS. This kid's got it, and I'm just really interested to see what's going to happen next for him.
You coached with Paul Maurice in Toronto, and it's, you know, Paul is on another run here, and I just wanted to get your insight as somebody who's coached with him, against him through the years. What do you think it is about him? I mean, clearly Florida and Bill Zito identified something that this is a guy that we need here to go on a run. That was when they kind of reworked things. That was clearly the priority. What is it about Paul's approach that you think tends to work well this time of year?
Well, you know what I love about Paul? It's a great reminder of the narrative that gets out there about players, sometimes about coaches. Let's rewind Winnipeg. Can't coach, terrible coach, got to get rid of him, blah, blah, blah. Oh, is that
was just Sean? I thought Sean was hard
whoa,
on him.
Whoa. That is, hold on a second. That's not true. We look, what is the last season been about on both ends of that?
I'm not saying it was you.
Craig is, and he's making shit up here. We can be honest.
Sorry.
I love that. Or like, oh, Sam Bennett in Calgary can't do this, can't do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, geez, yes, he can. So,
yeah. Right.
But you know what, Paul Maurice, he's a great friend of mine. He actually gave me my first chance as a coach. He was the head coach of the Toronto Marlies. It was my first year of coaching. But Paul Maurice, he is as quick on his feet as anyone, and I think you guys get to see it obviously in his press conference.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
you get to see it on the bench sometimes. He was just an incredible mentor for me, but there's not much he's going to miss. Like, his brain moves very, very quickly. He's able to communicate very clearly, and he knows when to push buttons. And I go back to, I spoke about this a few weeks ago. People called it that meltdown on that bench in Toronto, kind of late in the season, and he went after his team, and then they finished really, really strong. And I do not doubt that Paul was getting rid of some frustration right then. But I also know him well enough that it was probably pretty calculated, that he was going to light him up and get across his message. If you go back and look at that clip, if you watch Matthew Tkachuk, like, he never takes his eyes off Paul the whole time. There's other kids, looking at their skates, trying to just get out of the way of it.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really interesting that, the son of Keith would just never took his eyes off him. But Paul's super quick. He's got a vast amount of experience. And I think he's in the mode now of how much he's coached, that he just doesn't give a F about anything. And he's just going to do it his way. And I think that's really important. But I think he, and he would disagree with me, but I am such a fan of his. I believe that he is carrying that team on his back.
Definitely. You mentioned Brandon Montour. He's a player. Brandon Montour is a guy you've spent a lot of time with. You brought him up a few minutes ago. He's made the leap, it feels like, in the last year under Paul Maurice. So I'm just wondering if there's any button that Paul has pushed that you can sense with Brandon Montour that has allowed him to level up under Paul and his staff there, because he's been fantastic. He's been great in the playoffs, and he was great in the regular season too.
Well, everything you see now, like I saw in San Diego, and I also saw flashes of it when he was in Anaheim. But the thing that he's gotten this year is, and it goes back to you got to let these kids mature. Like, you've got to let them mature. Like, they are not going to be the same player at 22 that they are now at 27 or 29 or whatever it is. They all find their way at different times in their career. I think a lot of it has been opportunity. I love the stats at how far he is skating in games compared to others. He is in on everything. And the thing that everybody needs to know about Monty is, like, even back then, and I'm sure he is now, like, he was the most fit kid at camp. This kid is scary fit. And so he can play all night. His demeanor
he almost just did, by the way. He played almost an hour or whatever it was.
But how about his demeanor in the game? That's the other thing I love, is, like, he goes in, he misses a grade A chance, and he's laughing, going, I can't believe I missed the net, or I can't believe the goalie saved it. He loves the game so much that I'm sure in Florida, if there's a road hockey game going down the street, he's jumping in on it. Like, that's his passion for the game. So I think a lot of this is just maturity. I think it's a opportunity. Paul coaches where he puts a lot of trust in his players, and like going back, you look at the moves that were made over time here in Anaheim, and Monty was actually playing quite well, if I remember correctly. I think he got moved on because they really thought he was going to cost them way too much money. Yep. And when you think a player is going to cost you too much money, what does that mean? Well, it means that he's doing something right. Yeah. He's putting up numbers, and it saddens me when you see that, though. Like, he drafted by the Ducks, he's developed by the Ducks, and now he's somewhere else playing.
You could put together a pretty good blue line with the Ducks graduates. You think of all the defensemen they've lost through the last, let's say, 5 to 6 years or whatever it's been.
Well, I'm sure
you've done that math.
I can put it together really, really quickly for you, and it could be as simple as right here today. It could be very easily be Lindholm, Manson, Fowler, Drysdale, Theodore, Montour, Peterson. I don't know.
Did you win with that crew, you think? A little bit?
What is that? There's 7D for you.
I was gonna say you got Peterson as your 7. That's not bad.
That's not bad. All right, last thing. You mentioned kind of the pressures, and I this is a bit of a trope, so I don't want to I don't know. I don't want to bring up something, but you look at the 4 teams left. You look at all the noise out of Toronto, or another year without a Canadian Stanley Cup. Do you think it's any coincidence, as somebody who's coached in Edmonton and Toronto, and also you coached in Anaheim, any coincidence that the 4 remaining teams are Dallas and Carolina and Vegas, and these teams in Florida that can kind of do what they have to do without the major distractions?
Well, I don't think it's the main reason. I think getting to the Final Four, it's like all these little margins, these little tiny slices of a pie that go your way. It could be luck, it could be all these different things. But I will say this: it certainly doesn't help. And if you're in a Canadian market, so I coached in Edmonton and I coached in Toronto, and I know the challenges. And it's amazing how I haven't coached in one of those markets now in over 8 years. But being up there for Hockey Night in Canada, I got the real quick reminder. And the biggest thing that comes to my brain is I think if I ever work in a Canadian market again, I think it's almost like you need to really push discipline, and the discipline and the awareness of, okay, what really matters? Do all of these people with all of these cameras and all of these recorders and all of these people on Twitter and all these people on Instagram or TikTok or whatever you're doing on social media, do they really matter to you? I think what matters to you should be, what your family thinks, what your dad thinks and your mom thinks. But it's a difficult time for athletes, and they're all on social media. That's just the way it is. But to have the discipline and the tools to understand what really matters, because our brains work in a really interesting way. And it's a really simple process. If I was to give you guys a compliment right now, then you would take it. You'd feel pretty good about it. If I was to say something negative to one of you, it would subconsciously affect the others that hear it. But it's going to hit you or affect you 10 times harder than that compliment I give you. And if you go on Twitter or social media, I get it all the time. I've been teaching my 14-year-old daughter about social media by showing her things that get sent to me. And here, look, this is why you don't have an Instagram account, and I don't get ready for it and these things. So I do think it is more difficult. I think the players in Canadian markets are really passionate markets. I think they carry more than other markets. And I think it's just a great reminder to everyone that, man, instead of lighting these poor kids up on social media, maybe send them something positive every once in a while. But that's hard to come by on social media, and I think it's a really difficult thing for these players to get through.
The hard thing for me, Dallas, is I know some players are really good about even not going on social media or whatever, or not reading it, like legitimately. But when you talk about what's important, it's your family. It's then when they hear from their family that's like, hey, sorry, you're dealing with, like, they'll send a message that they think is being helpful because they're getting crushed on social, and the family's like, hey, I saw that, I got your back, and the player's like, well, I don't even know what you're talking about. I'm trying to shield myself from that. It's when the families get looped in and they're impacted. I think that people don't realize that.
Yeah, and you've got to train your family the same thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we've gone through it in our home, and this goes way back to when I was in Edmonton, where my greatest defender, and there's somebody you don't want to screw around with, is my wife. Like,
Yeah.
like she will cut your throat, man. Like, for you cross me. And we had to go through the process in Edmonton there just to go, hey, like, just stop. And it's kind of like what I just said to you, like, do we really care what this person thinks of me? I don't even know who it is. And that's just how I wrap my head around it. And I've just really simplified it. Like, I see stuff sometimes, and it's usually that way though. It's usually one of my buddies or somebody goes, hey, like, did you see this? And I was like, well, no, but thanks for
now I have.
but I kind of laugh at it now. I just think it's pretty funny that somebody actually takes time out of their day to, like, send you some nasty message and then, like, criticize your work where you have one of the top jobs in your field, and they're doing something that they're probably really miserable at.
Yeah, that's probably the psychology of it, right?
And you guys get it too. Like,
I'm trying not to jump here and be like, yeah, I know what you're going through, because God knows I wasn't a hockey coach in Edmonton, but yeah, it's completely true. Like, right. And the stuff about one negative comment having a weight.
Oh my gosh.
You got to not let it's one bad apple spoiling the bunch is a cliche, but it's true. Like, it poisons the well in some regards, and that's tough. And that's a tough element of behavioral science to get into if you're a hockey player with all these other concerns, right?
Well, and, like, so think about that right now, and this is where it's scientifically proven about the negativity to the positivity. So think about this right now. We're talking about Edmonton and Toronto, and what have we been talking about the whole time? Negative.
The negative stuff.
And it's not that. I can go down I can take you for an hour right now on my positive experiences in Toronto, my positive experiences.
That's right. Not interested in that, Dallas. Come on.
No.
But, like,
what's the worst thing someone's ever said to you on the internet? Let's talk about that, right? Like, I know it's wild.
Yeah, it's amazing how our brains work, but that's the reality of it.
Well, Dallas, thanks for doing this. I know you probably, like us, want to go for a run after this and exercise, and I know you have.
That's what I'm doing after this.
Are you really? Good for you.
Yeah, totally.
All right. But we always insightful. Always appreciate your time, Dallas. Thanks so much for doing this.
Hey, anytime, guys. I appreciate it.